I never expected the night I was humiliated would lead to my unbelievable redemption. I can still feel the cold sting of that memory, like icy fingers gripping my heart. The laughter. Oh, the laughter. It echoed in my ears for weeks, a haunting melody I couldn't escape. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. I stood there, alone, under the blaring lights at the school talent show. My hands trembled as I clutched the microphone, my palms slick with sweat. I was ready to pour my heart out in song, but the moment I opened my mouth, the unexpected happened. The music blared too loudly, drowning me out completely. All I could see were their faces, friends, peers, even my crush, their expressions shifting from anticipation to pure confusion. The whispers began, low and awkward, creeping into the air like a thick fog. I felt exposed, vulnerable, like a deer caught in headlights. In that moment, the world shrunk to just me and those unforgiving gazes. My best friend, Jenna, sat in the front row, her eyes wide with horror, searching for a way to rescue me from this nightmare. But the silence stretched. I cleared my throat, desperate to regain control. Each note I tried to sing cracked and faltered. The laughter erupted, thin cacophony of mocking sounds that sliced through my already fragile spirit. I wanted the ground to swallow me whole. The aftermath was brutal. Social media lit up with pictures and memes. I could feel a knot forming in my stomach, twisting tighter with every notification. I gathered my things, shoulders hunched, and bolted out into the night. The cool air slapped my face, stinging my pride. I felt like I had turned into a ghost, drifting aimlessly. But as I walked, something shifted in the atmosphere. A strange, flickering light caught my attention. It drew me in, compelling me to follow. I stepped into the alley, heart racing not from shame, but from something else, curiosity. The glow pulsated softly, beckoning me closer. Despite my better judgment, I pressed on, my trembling hands reaching for the source. What I found was beyond anything I could have imagined. A strange crystal, glowing like a dying star, lay against the cobblestones. It hummed with energy, vibrating through the air. I felt an electric current course through me as I touched it, my breath hitching in my throat. What was this? Why was it here? In that moment, I realized that this could be my chance, my unbelievable redemption. Perhaps this wasn't the end but a new beginning. But what did this crystal mean? I had so many questions swirling in my mind, questions that led me deeper into a mystery I never asked to uncover. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The following days blended into a hazy whirlwind of disbelief. The image of that cruel evening clung to me like a second skin, a constant reminder of my inadequacy. School felt like a battleground. Whispers slithered through the halls, echoing the laughter that still haunted me. Each time I caught sight of Jenna, her sympathetic gaze ignited a flicker of hope, yet I felt unworthy of her friendship. I avoided the lunchroom, retreating to an empty library corner instead. There, amid the smell of aging pages, I found solace in words, novels about heroes, stories of whimsical adventures, and tales of undying friendship. It distracted me, but I could never escape reality, especially when the laughter would bubble to the surface of my memory. One afternoon, as I scanned the shelves, the memory of that glowing crystal rushed back to me, pushing roots of curiosity deeper into my mind. The vivid warmth I sensed when I touched it lingered like an afterimage, and a part of me yearned to understand what it meant. What transformative power might it possess? Could it somehow understand my pain and offer a way to heal from the scars left by that scarring laughter? As if answering my thoughts, I made my way back to the alley where I found it, my heart pounding with both hope and trepidation. The cobblestones felt cold beneath my feet as I zigzagged between shadows and whispers. When I reached the spot where the crystal had rested, my heart sank. There was nothing, just the empty street and the lingering scent of rain. Frustration bubbled inside me, threatening to burst forth. "Why?" I yelled into the darkness. "Why did you show yourself to me if you were going to disappear?" In that moment of solitude, a soft voice drifted into my ears. "You're not alone, you know." Startled, I spun around to find an older woman standing a few feet away, her face illuminated by a small lantern. Her features were worn but kind, and there was something in her eyes, a glimmer of understanding that made me feel both exposed and protected. "Do you believe in second chances?" she asked. Her voice was a gentle breeze that wrapped around me, easing some of my tension. Before I could respond, she continued, "I've been where you are now, sweet girl. Life can be cruel, but sometimes it leads us to unexpected places." Her words struck a chord deep within. I wanted to confess everything: the humiliation, my dreams, the connection I felt with that glowing crystal, but before I could find my voice, she reached into her pocket and revealed something small and metallic. "I used to carry something with me too. I never knew if it would make a difference, but it gave me hope." It was a locket, intricately detailed with a faded inscription. I could barely breathe as I imagined the memories it held. "Do you want it?" she asked, extending her hand towards me. I can't," I whispered, suddenly unsure. What could I do with hope when I was still so deeply tangled in my despair? "Take it," she urged gently. "Sometimes we need to remind ourselves of who we are capable of becoming. You're stronger than you believe." Just as I reached for the locket, a loud commotion erupted from the street, a mob of students storming by, their laughter cutting through the air like shards of glass. I flinched, drawing back instinctively. Paralyzing fear consumed me as I recognized familiar faces, those who had witnessed my moment of humiliation. The older woman's brow furrowed with concern. "Don't let them take your light," she cautioned softly. "Remember this moment. Remember that kindness exists even in the darkness." And suddenly, with that explosive rush of laughter around me, a startling realization hit: there was still a glimmer of hope in the world, one I had overlooked amidst my despair. I needed to find that crystal, the one that had offered me a chance to be more than just the girl who failed at the talent show. "Thank you," I murmured, clutching her locket tightly as I turned to leave, my heart racing with a newfound determination. And yet, as I neared the street corner, I caught sight of my best friend Jenna standing off to the side. Her eyes wide with surprise. "Where have you been?" she called out, but there was something unsettling in her tone, a hidden urgency that made my insides twist. Before I could answer, a figure stepped forward from the crowd, my crush, Lucas, a smirk spreading across his face. "Look who we have here. The loser from the talent show. Still waiting for her moment to shine." The laughter cascaded like a flood, filling the air once more. I froze, the weight of their mockery slamming against my chest. And in that moment, standing on the precipice of humiliation once again, the locket pressed against my heart was my only lifeline. I felt the weight of the woman's words and the possibility of what could be. But doubt crept in as shadows loomed over me. Is this really just another beginning or the darkest chapter yet? The laughter bounced off the walls of the alleyway, wrapping around me like a shroud. I stood paralyzed as the familiar voices clasped my confidence tightly, squeezing until it threatened to implode. Jenna's frantic eyes locked onto mine, pleading for my response, but all I could muster was the crushing awareness of my own vulnerability laid bare. "Why are you here, Jenna?" I pleaded silently, willing her to understand the tempest swirling in my chest. I felt a surge of anger towards Lucas and his posse. Why couldn't they see the hurt behind their humor? "Come on, Ava. Let's just go," Jenna said softly, desperate to pull me back into safety. She stepped closer, but Lucas' presence loomed like a shadow, anchoring me to the darkness. "Don't you want to hear her sing again, guys?" he taunted, his smirk widening as the attention shifted between us. I mean, the talent show was a real blast. His friends cackled, like vultures circling prey, and I could feel their keen eyes slicing through me, exposing the rawness of my feelings for everyone to see. The locket in my palm felt heavy, a tangible reminder of the older woman, her words, and the flicker of hope she'd ignited deep inside me. I tightened my grip, feeling its cool metal grounding my thoughts. "Stop it," I whispered, the words barely breaking the barrier of my tight throat. That is the little bird finally going to chirp. Lucas sneered, stepping closer, shrouded in bravado, unaware of the battle waging within me. At that moment, hatred for him and his cruelty surged inside me, mixing dangerously with a yearning for acceptance and to make it all end. Jenna squeezed my arm, grounding me with her warmth. "Let's go. They're not worth it," she urged softly, her voice a lifeline amid the chaos. But suddenly, I felt an irrational surge of defiance. Was there a way to turn this tide? "No," I replied, surprising both myself and Jenna. "Not this time." Lucas blinked in confusion, as if taken aback by my response. "What? You really think you're going to stand up to me?" "Yes." The word surged out like a battle cry, and the crowd fell silent. "You think your laughter defines me? It doesn't. It's just noise." Each word propelled me further, fueled by the desperate hope that this moment could be more than another snapshot of pain. His smirk faltered, eyes narrowing, and something shifted in the atmosphere around us. I caught glimpses of uncertainty flash across the faces of his friends. Jenna looked at me then, her expression a mix of surprise and pride, urging me on without saying a word. "Maybe I didn't win the talent show. Maybe I fell flat," I continued, my voice quaking but rising in strength. "But that doesn't mean I'm defined by one moment. I'm more than a failure. And the crystal, a glowing crystal that led me to find kindness, reminded me how to forge my own path." As Lucas opened his mouth to retort, a voice cut through the tension. "Maybe it's time you learned something about kindness too." Lucas, a boy from the fringe of the group, Mark, spoke up. I had barely noticed him all this time. He had stayed silent. "You don't get to make fun of someone for trying." The ripple of surprise spread through the crowd, and it gave me a flicker of warmth. Mark took a step closer, standing beside me in an unexpected act of solidarity. "You're better than this, man," he continued, directing it towards Lucas. The crowd shifted, hesitant. Even though many had come to watch, to laugh, I could sense a shifting wind of defensiveness starting to unfold. Was this the moment where the tides could turn, where I was no longer the target? Lucas' facade cracked, frustration flickered across his face. "Come on, guys. This is a joke." He barked, but a few heads were shaking in disapproval. My heart raced, and I could feel Jenna's hand tighten around my arm, signaling her disbelief and hope too. But before the moment could crystallize into anything solid, a sudden shout broke the tension. "Look out!" Someone screamed, and in the chaos, I turned, exhilarated and terrified at the sudden movement in the direction of the alley's corner. A rowdy group of students burst onto the scene, their laughter mingled with excitement as they carried someone who hadn't been paying attention. In their midst was Jenna's ex-boyfriend, Alex, whose presence lit a spark of recognition in the crowd. He had been the center of my own emotional universe for a brief moment, before life chewed up any remnants of an innocent romance. Yet it was his arrival that took my breath away. He was known for his charm, but now, his eyes were alight with mischief, a challenge dancing on his lips. "Looks like you've all come together for a little performance," he shouted, purposefully stepping into the sphere of energy that had momentarily held its breath. The laughter erupted again, but this time, something felt different. Suddenly, the cornered bullies who had mocked me found themselves overshadowed by Alex's persona, drawing the attention away from my shame. As if marking a cue in the play of adolescent emotions, Jenna squeezed my hand again, and all I could feel in that moment was uncertainty. Would it be my pain or joy that led my heart forward? But right then, amid the chaos, an unexpected truth bubbled within me, raw yet undeniable. This hurt, this unending loop of self-doubt and rising rebellion was only the beginning. Would I choose to drown under it, or let it steal my resolve? And as the crowd roared around Alex's whimsical charm, a commotion brewed like a storm behind me, forcing my heart into a tumult. A hand tightened around my wrist, a shove towards the front of the crowd, sending me stumbling toward Lucas, who wore an expression I couldn't decipher. "Let's see who ends up really shining," he sneered, his hold leaving me teetering on the edge of vulnerability once more. And just like that, the spectacle of the evening shifted again, pulling me towards an uncertain fate that could crack the sky open or send me crashing back to earth. The laughter that had once felt like nails against my skin now ebbed and flowed, a chaotic tide blurring the lines of my reality. I staggered through the crowd, disoriented, their faces merging into a whirlpool of fear, insecurity, and faint glimmers of solidarity. It was a fragile mixture, a delicate dance between hope and despair that made my heart hammer in my chest. And it struck me then, as I stood on the precipice of embarrassment and defiance, that everything hinged on this one moment. I could feel Lucas' grip tightening, a strange mix of dread and anticipation swirling within me. Was this my chance to finally carve a space where I could breathe, or was I only stepping deeper into the void? "Get back!" Jenna's fierce voice cut through the haze, her protective nature igniting a flicker of hope. She stepped between Lucas and me, her stance unwavering like a lighthouse guiding a ship through the storm. "You don't get to do this to her. Not now. Not ever." Lucas' laughter faltered, confusion etched across his facade. I could see Mark shift uncomfortably, torn between the murmurs of encouragement that hummed in his chest and the palpable tension that hung thick in the air. The strange camaraderie from moments earlier flickered like an unsteady flame, threatening to extinguish entirely. My heartbeat echoed in my ears, thudding with a rhythm of its own. "Who do you think you are?" Lucas spat out, anger coating his words with venom. "A friend," Jenna replied, her voice steady. Something deep inside me stirred. Did I really deserve such loyalty? Did I earn the right to stand taller in the face of my fears? A moment slid by, a tantalizing whisper of possibility, but the grip on my wrist remained unyielding, reminding me that uncertainty still loomed. The crowd pivoted slightly, eyes darting between us like startled birds caught in a storm. And then, just as the air crackled with newfound tension, Alex broke through the buzz. "What's going on here? Looks like I stumbled into the wrong kind of reunion." His playful grin relaxed the rigid lines on a few faces, his playful energy radiating outward like the sun breaking through gray clouds. "Your performance is over, Lucas," he said, narrowing his gaze, his bravado palpable. "Why don't you bring the show to a close?" Could he be serious? The issue wasn't merely a struggle for dominancy, it was my life playing out under a cruel spotlight. Lucas' sneer faltered momentarily, hesitation creeping into his expression as if Alex's audacity shook something within him. "Yeah, maybe it's time you learned what respect means," Mark added, his fortitude spilling into the void where once there was just anger. A wave of empathy began to wash over me. No matter how outnumbered I felt, I was no longer an island. I had Jenna, Mark, and even Alex laced into this moment, fortifying me against the sameness of solitude. Glimmers of encouragement creased the corners of the crowd's eyes, sparking my resolve. But then, Lucas lunged forward, and fear stabbed through me like ice. "You think I'm afraid of you?" he hissed, eyes flashing dangerously. "You think this changes anything?" "Maybe not," I spoke, my voice like a tender thread woven into the fabric of the chaos, "but you can't control this. You can't erase my voice." A sudden hush wrapped around us, an eerie calm that preceded a storm. And then, as if drawn by an insatiable rhythm, I stepped forward despite the looming tension, fueled by determination. "Because I'm not defined by your laughter or your cruelty. I am more than that." But before the words completed their journey into the ether, a sharp cry sliced through the air like glass shattering in a quiet room. "Look! Something's happening." A girl in the back pointed, her voice quivering as she gestured toward a shadowy figure that materialized at the end of the alley. Heads turned in unison, my heart skittering in disbelief. The figure approached, draped in shadows mingled with crystalline light, an ethereal presence amidst the chaos. "Ava," the voice was hauntingly familiar, breaking against the wall of tension with an unexpected warmth. "Do you remember me?" It was the woman from before, the one who had given me the locket, the woman whose words cradled my spirit like a fragile flower. Hope rose within me, potent and vibrant, like the first touch of dawn after a night filled with dismay. How? I stuttered, the loneliness of the moment suspended as I struggled to comprehend the impossibility of her presence. I've come to remind you that kindness is a choice, she said, her voice resonating in waves that steadied my fraying nerves. And sometimes it brings what you least expect. As my voice clawed up my throat, searching for an anchor in this storm of emotions, I felt the crowd waver again like a river hesitating before its rapids. Lucas' laughter morphed into something darker, desperate. What kind of game is this? Not a game, she replied, her gaze sweeping over me and the crowd. A lesson. Every moment shapes who we become. What do you choose, Ava? And just like that, the moment suspended in time threatened to explode, a clash of decisions and emotions warring within me. Would I be the girl who cowered in fear, or would I find my voice amidst the din? The answer lingered on the tip of my tongue, but another push from Lucas knocked me off balance, yanking me back toward the edge of uncertainty. You don't give up, do you? He sneered, a mix of bravery and fear battling in his eyes. Something sparked deep within me, igniting not just the need to stand up for myself, but for every voice that had been silenced before mine. It struck me then that kindness could transform more than just my heart. It might illuminate the shadows cast by others, but just as I thought I grasped a strand of courage, another tumult erupted. A resounding crash echoed from the shadows behind us, one that set the entire crowd awash in uncertainty. The warmth I had felt moments before flickered, begging for another chance to reclaim its solidity. And it was in that moment that I understood we were all tethered together in this moment of chaos, poised on the brink of change. Just as easily as laughter could cut, it could also sew together fragments into something beautiful. But would this fleeting moment of hope turn to ashes, like so many lives snuffed out before? Time held its breath, caught between the recklessness of the present and the uncertainty of the future, waiting with me for just one answer to break the silence. The silence stretched, taut as a wire ready to snap. All eyes turned to the source of the crash, a dark shape shifting from the alley's shadows into the dim light. It wasn't another person, it was a dumpster, overturned and spilling its contents, a cascade of crumpled boxes, shattered glass, and assorted refuse that settled with a soft thud against the pavement. The crowd collectively exhaled, momentarily distracted from the enveloping tension, eyes wide and curious. I was shocked, my breath caught in my throat, but also relieved, as if the spectacle had provided a brief window from confrontation and fear. Then, a figure emerged from behind the heap. My heart leaped into my throat as I recognized her, a girl I knew from school, Eliza. She was notorious for her sharp wit and her knack for picking apart the insecurities of others with the precision of a surgeon. What is going on? Eliza's voice pierced through the low murmurs. Her eyes narrowed at Lucas, and for a split second, behind that confident facade, I caught a quiver of uncertainty. Is this really how we're behaving? It's pathetic. Lucas, his bravado flickering like an old flame in the wind, opened his mouth to retort, but the words evaporated before they could take shape. There was something about Eliza's fierce audacity that had a way of dismantling bravado, like crumpling paper into a ball. Ava, you should have told me this was happening, she directed her gaze toward me, a sudden warmth breaking through the chilly air. You shouldn't have to face this alone. The words wrapped around me like a shawl, drawing me back from the abyss of self-doubt. Here was Eliza, girl I had seen as an antagonist in my narrative, extending a hand, reminding me of the thin line between rivalry and solidarity. I had no idea if I could even face it, I confessed, my voice still shaky, too tender to rival the noise around us. It feels overwhelming. Eliza rolled her eyes, her bravado returning. Well, welcome to the club. Most of us feel that way, Ava. It's called being human. Jenna, who had remained steadfast beside me, exchanged a glance with Eliza, and in that unspoken moment a flicker of understanding sparked between them. It was strange how the chaos of human emotions could unite allies, strangers finding common ground where fear had tried to lay claim. As Lucas began to regain his composure, frustration bubbling back to the surface, I took a step forward. Enough, Lucas. Enough of this, I declared, my voice rising above the chaos. The words were more articulate than I'd expected, like a small wave gathering strength before crashing on the shore. Stop pretending you're something you're not, I continued, feeling the embers of courage spark into life within me. You're just as scared as the rest of us, but you use that fear to try and control others. It's time to grow up. All of us. A strange realization washed over me. Conviction in my words did not just echo outwards to Lucas, but back to myself. Perhaps I was beginning to truly understand the very essence of the woman who had visited me earlier. What was the point of kindness if it was withheld, held hostage by our egos? Give it a rest, Ava, Lucas sneered, but somewhere obvious amidst his defensiveness, a crack threatened the veneer he had so carefully built. Why? Afraid it'll shine too bright for you to handle? I shot back, my pulse racing. The exchange gave me life, emboldening the shadows that had lingered too long in my heart. Alex moved closer, nodding at Jenna and me in silent solidarity, his expression unwavering. Ava's right. Don't you find it exhausting, Lucas? Hiding behind people's fear. But before Lucas could respond with the venom I expected, he turned abruptly and fled into the crowd, the remnants of his bravado trailing after him like a shadow on the retreat. My heart pounded with both exhilaration and disbelief. Had I truly just stood up to him? No longer did I feel like a fragile flower in a windstorm, I felt like a tree, bending but not breaking. The atmosphere shifted, a subtle weight lifting as murmurs of surprise transformed into quiet applause, unexpected encouragement threading through the gaps of disbelief. But just then, amid the scattered words of approval, I caught sight of Eliza biting her lip, her eyes suddenly darkening. Ava, wait! Before I could turn around, the crowd shifted again as an unfamiliar figure emerged from the shadows opposite the alley. My stomach twisted into knots as I recognized that face, someone I'd thought was long gone from my life. Mom. I breathed, horror mixing with disbelief. The warmth of the earlier moments retreated, leaving me exposed in the dreaded chill of reality. Her eyes met mine, a mix of regret and hesitance flickering across her features. I had long imagined this moment, but fantasy never prepared me for the reality of seeing the woman who had left me behind. Things are different now, she said slowly, her voice trembling as if testing the waters of my trust. I searched her expression, desperately seeking the reassurance I had yearned for through all the years but only found despair painting an uncertain picture. It felt like I was balancing on the precipice of forgiveness, teetering between the desire to embrace her and the impulse to run away instead. Why now? My voice cracked, revealing the rawness beneath the bravado I had so carefully wrapped around myself. Why choose this moment? Eliza pushed closer to my side, her presence grounding amidst my swirling emotions. She reached out, offering a small gesture of support, the kind that reminded me I was not alone in this storm. My heart pounded, caught between old hurt and the strange flicker of hope, but as I stood on the brink, uncertain of where to step next, I felt the ground shift beneath me. World, once spinning out of control, now teetering on the edge of an unpredictable fracture. Would I embrace my mother or keep her at arm's length? Would this be a moment of reconciliation or another chapter closed in heartbreak? Only one thing was certain: whatever I chose, it would lead me deeper into the labyrinth of my own redemption, swirling towards a conclusion I had yet to fathom. Every heartbeat echoed like a drum in my ears, each pulse a reminder of the conflict coursing through me. The air around us felt like a palpable entity, thick with unsaid words and unresolved emotions. I wanted to scream, to lash out, and yet here I stood, paralyzed by shock and betrayal. My mother, after all these years of absence, had chosen now, at this moment of vulnerability, to reappear. The girl who had claimed her departure was about freedom and choice stood before me, her own choices hanging heavy in the air. I wanted to shove her away, to demand explanations for every sleepless night, for every birthday missed, for every Christmas that had passed without her. Why should I believe anything you say? I finally managed, my voice a whisper laced with acid barely contained. She flinched, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. I know I don't deserve forgiveness, Ava, but please, just listen. Listen. To what? I snapped, cutting her off. Another excuse. Another lie wrapped in promises you won't keep. My words felt like knives slashing through the haze that had settled over us. Each edge, sharp and unforgiving, drew closer to the truth I had desperately fought to bury. The crowd began to dissipate, curiosity replaced by a need for distance as tension rippled through the space. Only Eliza remained steadfast beside me, a rock in the whirlpool of my emotions, her expression a strange blend of concern and encouragement. "Ava, look at her," Eliza urged, her voice a gentle nudge. "Remember that you have the power here, too. You can decide." My gaze flicked from Eliza to my mother, searching for a flicker of remorse or uncertainty, but instead, I found a gaunt figure bearing the weight of her own regrets, just as I was bearing mine. In that moment, I saw not just the woman who had abandoned me, but a person trapped in her own missteps, perhaps just as lost as I felt. "What do you want?" I asked, my voice softer now, a tremor revealing the cracks in my facade. The brave tree inside me was wilting, battling against the gusts of old pain. "More than anything, I want to make things right," my mother said, desperation bleeding into her tone. "I'm not asking you to forgive Mehmed, that will never happen, but I need you to know I want to try. To be here now. To be what you need me to be." I scoffed at her words, lost between the mother who had chosen freedom and the one standing in front of me, desperate not to lose her daughter again. "And how am I supposed to trust that you won't leave again? That you won't turn away when things get tough?" The words spilled from me, raw and unfiltered. Someone in the crowd, a person drawn unexpectedly by our turmoil, murmured a gentle, "You deserve to be heard, Ava." I turned, momentarily stunned to see an older woman patting my shoulder, her eyes filled with the kind of understanding that felt foreign. For a fleeting moment, I grasped a thread of connection that reached beyond my immediate surroundings, beyond my mother's actions. Peel back the layers of hurt and anger, and there lay a universe of forgiveness, waiting to be explored. Yet, the contemplation came with its own weight, a burdensome acknowledgement that what lay ahead wouldn't be simple. "Mom," I began, my throat tightening, "it will take more than just words. You can't just walk in and expect everything to be okay." "I understand," she said, a nod etched with sincerity. "I will fight for your trust, every step of the way, if you'll let me." But as I stood there, teetering between the remnants of the past and the uncertain promise of the future, the ground beneath us shuddered once more. A distant siren wailed, pulling our fleeting moment of resolution apart, stretching it thin across the expanse of chaotic reality, and just like that, the elegant reconstruction of our blossoming reconciliation was interrupted. A sharp gasp from Eliza pulled my gaze back to her. "Ava, look." I turned to follow her wide-eyed stare, my heart dropping to a new low as I saw what had broken the fragile atmosphere. There, standing at the edge of the alley, silhouetted by the fiery flickering light of the street lamp, was Lucas. Beside him stood two men, clearly older, dressed in dark coats that loomed like shadows amidst the dim light. I felt my gut twist as dread filled the air, a palpable tension creeping back into the space as Lucas' expression morphed into something menacing. My pulse quickened, visceral instincts kicking in. "Ava, remember what I said," my mother urged, stepping forward defensively. But it was too late. The night I had believed might offer restoration instead lingered on the precipice of chaos, unveiling a larger threat, the very shadow I thought I could outrun. As Lucas leveled his gaze directly at me, the remnants of my newfound courage splintered, washed away in a tempest I wasn't prepared to face. Would this night be a brutal reminder of the past or a twisted path to an inconceivable future? The truth loomed ahead, darker than the alleys we stood in, and I felt the earth evaporating beneath my feet like smoke in the wind. The chaos swirled around me, as if the universe itself had conspired to transform this night of fragile hope into a battleground of unresolved fears. Lucas's presence sent icy fingers of terror creeping up my spine, freezing the speech that threatened to erupt from my throat. He looked so different yet so familiar, like the tempest that had once swept through my life, leaving destruction in its wake. "Ava!" Eliza shouted, her voice breaking through the fog of my shock. "We need to move." But I couldn't tear my gaze from Lucas' hard expression. The boys flanking him shifted, their postures suggesting they were there for more than just a casual confrontation. The kind of dread that wrapped around my chest reminded me of everything I'd tried to forget. "Is this your family reunion?" Lucas mocked, his voice dripping with disdain as he stepped forward. "People you abandoned, Ava? Or just a pity party?" I recoiled at the venom in his tone, but something deeper simmered beneath my revulsion and ache of disappointment that I didn't want to acknowledge. "Leave me alone," I managed to say, though it sounded more like a plea than a command. "It's too late for that," he replied, grinning, a flash of triumph lighting his eyes. "You can't walk away from this, not after everything." His gaze flickered toward my mother, and I felt a surge of protectiveness. "Especially not with her back in your life. You think she's here for you? She's just looking for another escape.no." I shouted, the sound of my voice surprising even me. In that moment, I felt the embers of anger igniting a small spark of courage. "You don't know anything about us." Lucas stepped closer, the attic of memories heavy in his every movement. I caught the scars of our shared history in his eyes, both the moments of laughter and the dark clouds of pain that had bent our childhood into something unrecognizable. But then I remembered the note, the slip of paper that had arrived the previous week, carrying remnants of vulnerability. Had asked for a chance to explain, to make amends for the betrayal that had strained our connection. Now, that spark seemed extinguished under the weight of accusation. "Ava's the one who walked away," he continued, dismissively, his focus sharpening like a knife. "Don't act surprised that she's choosing to stand next to the person that hurt her when she had the chance to be with someone who really loved her." The room tilted on its axis, and I could almost hear my heart cracking slowly under the weight of his words. Was he right? Had I been so desperate for validation that returning to my mother meant shunning my own past? "No," Eliza spoke up, a fierce brightness emanating from her otherwise soft demeanor. "You don't get to define her choices, Lucas. She's capable of making her own decisions, and what you want no longer matters." Surprisingly, his eyes flickered to Eliza, and there was a moment of hesitation. Perhaps her fierce spirit had startled him, a reminder that I was not entirely alone. "Out of your league, aren't you?" He chuckled darkly, the shadows twisting across his face. "The strong little friend who wants to shield the princess. But princesses can be cruel too, can't they?" I struggled with the weight of his insinuations, my heart racing as a tempest brewed inside me. Eliza had offered kindness in a moment when I felt unworthy of it. It was like a lifeline, stretching out amidst the storm. "Whatever you think you know, it's not enough," I shouted, the words spilling like a dam finally breaking. "I've fought to understand everything I've felt, and am not about to let you twist this into something twisted and unrecognizable." Lucas opened his mouth, no doubt ready to land another blow, but instead, the tension between us shifted. The older boys behind him fidgeted, their boots scuffing against the pavement as if feeling the weight of the moment. "Lucas," one of them murmured, shifting his stance uneasily. "Maybe we should just know." "I'm not backing down," he barked, his aggression flaring like a wildfire. As the air, thick with animosity, surrounded me, my mother stepped between us cautiously. "Lucas," she said, her voice calm yet wavering. "This isn't about you. This is about Ava and starting anew. Can't you see that?" He scoffed at her, but the tremor of uncertainty crept into his gaze. I could see it flicker behind the bravado, the unrest, the anger, the unyielding hurt. "That I see a broken family," he replied, his voice low and curdled with regret. "And no matter how much you want to pretend you can pick up the pieces, you're still bound by every wound we share." But I knew then that I had a choice. The moments of raw vulnerability I'd been yearning for flowed through me like a warm current, igniting a new hope amid the chaos of the unresolved past. "Maybe broken families can find a path," I said, my voice steady, surprising both myself and Lucas, whose fury began to crumble with each word I spoke. "Maybe redemption doesn't come from running away or knocking on old doors, but standing firm and facing what's in front of us." For the briefest moment, I thought I saw his defenses start to waver as the air between us thickened, heavy with our shared history. But just as I prepared to reach deeper into my own courage, a crash rang out in the distant unfiltered sound of glass shattering, followed by frantic shouts echoing from somewhere down the alley. What the hell was that? Eliza exclaimed, her eyes wide and shifting nervously. The fragile moment that had begun to weave ties between us snapped like a frayed string. As chaos erupted around me, Lucas' eyes flickered, darting between the noise and my face, unsure of what to do next. Before I could catch my breath, everything spun back into darkness, a menacing swirl of uncertainty. Ava. Eliza's hand gripped mine tightly, a simple reminder that I wasn't facing this alone. We have to go, but as panic took root, I caught a glimpse of something bigger than our little tension, something lurking in the shadows threatening to upend our fragile balance. In that heated second, just as we turned to leave, I saw Lucas' expression shift, his resolve shattered, revealing a ghost of fear mingled with desperation. Wait. He called, his voice piercing through the haze. There's something you need to know. But the moment I turned back, the darkness covered his words, and the distant sound swallowed what he wanted to say. The sirens grew louder, an urgent plea from within the universe, a song urging us to confront the truth gripping us all. And as the silhouettes lost connection with the sound of reality retreating behind us, I felt the gaping abyss of uncertainty beckon. It whispered of the twists yet to come, leaving only the echoes of an unimaginable redemption hanging in the air. As the sirens howled in the distance, a sense of urgency seeped into the fabric of the moment. Eliza's grip on my hand tightened as we exchanged a fleeting look filled with unspoken questions. We were caught in a web of disarray, yet Lucas stood there caught in a limbo of desperation and fear, drawing me back to him like a moth to a flame. Ava, please. The plea slipped from his lips, laced with something deeper than anger. You need to hear what I have to say. Just as fear and doubt began to resurface within me, a small flicker of hope ignited at the edges of my consciousness. What could he possibly reveal that would matter now? Was it too late to bridge the chasm of our past? But something in his pained expression pulled me in, as if I were once again that frightened girl, yearning for connection against the reality of a broken world. Stop, Eliza urged gently, but there was a tremor in her voice, an uncharacteristic blend of protective instincts battling a budding curiosity. We can't stay here, but I hesitated, torn between the warmth of friendship and the ire sparking in Lucas' eyes. The chaos of our surroundings faded into the background, the sirens becoming a distant echo, muted by the gravity of this moment. Tell me, I whispered, hesitantly stepping closer, unable to suppress the instinct to seek understanding amidst the confusion. Lucas shifted as if bracing himself, the moment stretching thin before spilling into the void. That I am not what you think, he began emphatically, the edge of his voice trembling with conviction. What happened between us, between our families, it was never just about you. There's so much more. I'm afraid, Ava, afraid of what our history can do to the people we are now. Eliza shifted nervously, eyes darting around us as the sounds from the distance swirled like autumn leaves caught in a storm. Ava, I don't think we have time for this, she urged, her voice more insistent. We need to let her speak, Eliza, Lucas interjected, his gaze narrowing. This is important. That my heart thumped wildly against my ribcage, bewildered by the dichotomy of emotions washing over me. Here was Lucas, years after the chaos, seeking redemption, or was it merely a self-serving plea hidden behind the guise of vulnerability? In my gut, I sensed it wasn't that simple, and the intricacies of our past tightened around us like ivy, entwining memories of joy with the thorns of betrayal. That I am listening, I said, forcing my voice steady despite the trembling echo of uncertainty. I did things I regret, he confessed, his fierce facade cracking. It wasn't just you who walked away. I ran from my mistakes, and I thought by pushing you away I could protect you from the darkness I brought into your life. A churning storm brewed in my chest, but I fought against the tide of anger threatening to rise. What do you mean? I breathed, seeking clarity amidst the confusion. That I heard things, he continued, his voice barely above a whisper. Things about us. About our families and their history. I didn't know how to cope, so I pushed you away like a coward, like they all did. And then, when you left for good, I assumed that was it. But it wasn't until I got that note. Eliza interjected, her brows knitting together. The one I sent, I said, my pulse quickening as the reality of my actions crashed down like the tide. I had opened a door I thought was sealed forever. It was a desperate attempt, Lucas continued, but Ava, I'm not the only one who hurt you. There are things you don't now. Things about why your mother left, about why she's here now. His voice faltered, an indescribable gravity weighing heavily upon each syllable. Lucas, I urged, fighting against the need for him to hurry. What are you saying? Then, as the tension erupted and the chaos pulsed around us still, he took a breath and spoke, if you really want to understand redemption, you need to know the truth about your sister. The words hung in the air like a thunderclap, electrifying the veil of uncertainty between us. My sister? I'd never considered it. The very thought sliced through me with the sharpness of a shearing. Wind, what did he mean? A sister? How could I have a sibling I didn't know about? My heart raced, a maelstrom of confusion swirling within the confines of my mind. Eliza, I barely managed to utter as the realization settled in, then I turned back to Lucas, my voice trembling. What do you know? I don't have time to explain everything here, he said urgently, glancing at the darkening sky that loomed over us. But if you want to find the truth, the answers are closer than you think. And just as the weight of his words began to settle, a fleeting shadow flickered in the alley behind him. An abrupt noisy crashing sound of debris echoed, sending cold fingers racing down my spine. Eliza's hand tightened against mine, unmistakably aware of the new threat emerging from the chaos that we were being surrounded, confronted by something larger than our broken ties, a dark tide rising against the shore of our lives. Before I could respond, Lucas stepped back into the shadows, his eyes locking onto mine with a fervent desperation. Just trust me, Ava. You need to know who you really are. And with the last echo of his words lingering as a haunting whisper, we sprang into a nightmare from which there would be no turning back, plunging into the darkness that promised both revelation and ruin. The distant wails of sirens twisted into the harrowing crescendo of the night as we rushed deeper into the murky alleyway, shadows dancing around us. Eliza's grip on my wrist felt like an anchor, tethering me to the fragile reality I desperately needed to hold on to. We have to keep moving, she urged, her urgency palpable, yet I could still feel the weight of Lucas's words looming overhead like an impending storm. Wait. My voice broke through the chaotic rush as I turned back toward where Lucas had vanished. I wanted to cling to the promise of understanding, the harrowing intrigue of a sister I had yet to know. I can't just leave this behind. But Eliza tugged at me gently, her expression softening into one of concern. Ava, listen. If we don't get out of here, we might never find the answers we seek. Still, the essence of Lucas lingered in the air, his piercing gaze questioning my very existence. What could he possibly know about my mother? About this sister? As uncertainty coiled around me, questions sprang up like weeds through cracked pavement. Don't ignore me. I insisted, pulling away from Eliza's grasp. There's so much at stake. Eliza met my gaze, her eyes searching mine, and somehow, in the midst of chaos, I could see a flicker of understanding reflected back. I know. But we need a safer space. We can talk, we will talk. Just trust me that as we dashed down the alley, uncertainty pulsing at my back like ghostly fingers, I felt her steadiness slowly seep into my bones. Maybe, just maybe, hope could bloom amid despair. We stumbled across a narrow door, its metal frame battered yet steadfast, which led into a forgotten cafe lit by flickering neon light. Eliza pushed it open, and warmth flooded over us like an embrace, a stark contrast to the cold reality outside. Inside, the faded walls whispered stories of laughter and loss, each chipped table echoing the ghost of lives lived in simpler times. For a brief moment, the world outside shrank to nothing more than a whisper that we settled at the back corner, our eyes scanning the room while the comforting scent of coffee mingled with stale air. My heart raced as I recounted everything that had transpired outside, recounting Lucas's fervent words like they were delicate glass figurines, one wrong move and they could shatter. Eliza listened intently, her brow furrowed in thought. That I swear I didn't know I had a sister, I gasped, grappling for clarity. How is it possible that my mother never told me? Eliza's expression softened, and in that moment, a deep vulnerability flickered behind her eyes. There are many secrets we keep to protect the ones we love, even if it feels like betrayal. Maybe your mother, maybe she thought she was protecting you. I huffed a laugh, muddied with bitterness. Protecting me? By hiding another part of my family? Or by running away? A moment of silence followed, both of us wrestling internally with the swirling turmoil of our pasts. It was the kind of silence that felt heavy with unspoken words and fragmented truths. This dance with the past felt like watching two storms converge, crashing together to create chaos or clarity. Just as I was about to voice my concern again, the bell above the cafe door chimed angrily, breaking through our thoughts. A figure stepped into the light, drawing our gazes sharply. My heart plummeted as recognition tugged at my memory. Lucas stood framed in the doorway, panting as if he had just run a marathon. "That I told you to trust me," he breathed, looking around as if seeking any semblance of reassurance. "There's more at stake than you know, Ava, more." I snapped, the anger boiling just beneath the surface. "More than what you've already told me. Because right now, I'm just lost in the chaos you created." "That I am not here to defend myself," Lucas countered, his voice urgent yet steady. "Someone is looking for you, and it's not just anyone. It could be dangerous." "What do you mean?" Eliza asked, her voice steadying as she leaned forward, curiosity edging out fear. Before Lucas could respond, an explosion echoed from outside, shaking the very ground beneath us as the building trembled in response. The cafe's windows rattled violently, sending shards of panic through my veins. "Get down!" Lucas shouted, diving to shield us, arms spread in a protective guard. For that split second, the spectacle of protection shattered the barriers I had built between us, reminding me that perhaps redemption was a path we all needed to traverse. But amidst the chaos, my heart raced with a different fear. Lucas wasn't the only one with secrets. I felt the truth about my own life, grappling with the uncertainty of this nightmarish reality. What could be lurking in the shadows, waiting to slip through the cracks? And just as we huddled together, shadows creeping further into our world, Eliza's phone began buzzing violently on the table. The light illuminated her face, revealing a look of stark disbelief. "It's my mother," she whispered, her voice trembling, as her eyes darted toward mine. "It's a text and it says we need to run. Now." "Run?" My heart pounded against my ribcage, my mind racing. "What do you mean? What's happening?" But before she could answer, another crash reverberated from the street, shaking the ground beneath us. Eliza's expression morphed into a grim determination. "There's no time." She grabbed my hand. "We have to go," and as we sprinted into the night, uncertainty coiling tighter around me, I sensed a new wave of revelation and peril lurking just out of sight, waiting for the moment to strike. The truth was never far behind, and this chaotic swirl of life had only just begun. The alleyway felt like a maze, every step leading us deeper into the unknown, but Eliza's grip was firm as we ran. My heart raced not just from fear, but from the bewildering weight of everything I had just learned and the fragments of my past that had come crashing down. There was a sister. There was danger. And Lucas, the boy who had once laughed at my misery, seemed entwined in the tangled web that surrounded us. Turning corners, we burst into the street, weaving through the scattered remnants of the night. The chaos outside had quieted into an uneasy stillness, punctuated only by distant sirens that wailed like lost souls. I could feel Lucas beside me, his presence a tether to a decidedly unfamiliar future. "Where do we go?" I gasped, desperately seeking direction amid the confusion. "Follow me," he said, his urgency palpable as he darted toward a nearby park, its shadows concealing more than just darkness. The air buzzed with the remnants of adrenaline, a stark contrast to the calm night that loomed overhead. As we reached the edge of the park, he slowed, his back to us as his breath returned to normalcy. "We need to talk," he said, and I noticed the tension coiling in the air, thick enough to cut through. "Ava, please listen. If they find us, who's looking for me?" I interrupted, the urgency boiling over. "You can't drop bombshells about my family and expect me to just accept it. What do you know about my sister? Why do you know this?" His shoulders sank under the weight of my questions, but the determination in his eyes never wavered. "They're a group tied to your mother's past. They think you might have inherited something significant that she has kept hidden. Your sister was. He hesitated as if caught between reality and a bruised history, his gaze locked onto the night. What? I pressed, the need for truth pressing like a bruise against my heart. What happened to her? I don't know all the details, but I heard them talking. The authorities are looking for anyone tied to your family, hoping you possess whatever it is they seek. Suddenly, my thoughts spun into darkness. But I don't even know who my sister is. Despair resonated in my voice. What if Lucas? What if this is just more confusion? I can't lose anyone else. Eliza touched my arm gently, providing the anchor I desperately needed. Ava, well, figure it out. Together. But before I could respond, a barrage of footsteps echoed through the park. I turned, panic flaring across my body as shadows slipped out from behind the trees. Two figures emerged, figures I didn't recognize, faces obscured, dressed menacingly in dark coats. Keep running, Lucas whispered, his urgency ringing in my ears, but it was too late. They had spotted us. Stop right there. One shouted, charging towards us. Instinctively, I pulled Eliza closer, desperate to shield her from whatever might ensue. Run! Lucas shouted once more, pushing us forward as he stood his ground. Fear flooded my veins, the dread of everything I had thought I understood growing tenfold. My heart raced as Lucas faced the advancing figures, a fierce resolve etched across his face, his willingness to protect us sparking something inside me. This was not just a boy seeking redemption, this was someone prepared to fight, and that made all the difference. That we dashed deeper into the labyrinth of the park, branches biting at our arms as I tried to shake off the raw panic gripping my heart. Eliza sprinted alongside me, her breath hitching but her focus unwavering. Keep moving. She urged, glancing back only once to see if Lucas was right behind us, but as we reached the edge of the park, the air turned thick with dread. I paused for just a heartbeat, turning my head to see Lucas standing stark against the dark figures, his stance solid and brave. I felt a fissure open inside my chest. Could I really leave him behind? Go! Lucas yelled, his voice cutting through the tension. He'll catch up. No! I screamed, the word bursting from my throat like a lifeline. I couldn't abandon him again, especially after everything we had been through. Just as panic gripped my lungs, the figures faltered, surprise glinted in their eyes. Lucas! I shouted, running back toward him against every instinct harbored deep inside. His gaze snapped to mine, a mixture of surprise and something I struggled to comprehend. Run! He barked again, frustration crawling into his voice. But as my feet slowed, the ache of losing someone I was beginning to understand knocked the breath from my lungs. I won't leave you. I insisted, desperate to convey the truth in my voice. You're part of this, whether you like it or not. I get to choose this. Lucas shook his head, sadness washing over his features as the figures lunged forward. But I wouldn't let his sacrifice mean nothing, not again, not ever. Heart pounding, I darted towards him, towards the danger, me instincts thrumming with a need to protect. Suddenly, Eliza appeared at my side, determination etched in her expression. Well, face them, she said firmly, standing shoulder to shoulder with me, drawing the line. Together, Lucas' eyes widened as the shadows drew closer. If you don't leave now. But my feet were rooted firmly in place. And then an inexplicable force swept over us, faces shifting and shimmering in my mind's eye, memories clashing with the present. I thought about the woman who had given me the locket, the voices that murmured to me through the dark, the echoes of laughter that had once defined me. In that singular moment of clarity, a realization surged forward, a fierce resolve coursed through my veins. You think you can scare us? I shouted to the dark figures lurking ahead, my voice rising above the mounting chaos. You don't know what we're capable of. The figures hesitated, surprise flickering on their faces as they exchanged uncertain glances. But I had ignited something powerful, pushing past fear to summon the courage hidden in my heart. And just like that, Lucas, Eliza, everyone around us could feel it too. That a sudden burst of energy ignited within me, and I pivoted back toward Lucas. Trust me, I declared, the words bearing a weight that anchored my resolve. Would I follow the past or step boldly into the unknown? It was no longer just a choice for me, I could feel its ramifications echoing through our hearts, weaving together the lives that hung in jealousy, regret, and hope. And amid the thickening air, the web of lies began to unravel, weaving our fates together in a way that felt unstoppable. Together. Eliza echoed, her voice full of conviction, and in that heartbeat, we propelled forward, three souls united against the gathering shadows. As the figures advanced with sudden ferocity, Lucas moved with us, activating a fierce determination that transcended the past. The night thundered around us, but in our hearts gathering strength, reclaiming power we surged forward, together, we would uncover the truth. Together, we would unearth the threads that bound us. And maybe, just maybe, the light we illuminated would break through the chaos, evolving into something far more beautiful than we could ever have imagined. With every pulse of energy propelling us on, we surged into our future filled with revelation and turbulence teetering on the edge of all we had yet to discover. And yes, my sister awaited in the shadows, but so did the forgiveness we yearned for, the redemption we fought for, and an unquenchable hope lighting the path ahead. In that moment, I realized that amidst chaos is the chance to reclaim a life of purpose. We would face our fears together, emerging stronger bound by choices, illuminated by love and ready to understand the unimaginable depths of who we truly were. As we stepped into the unknown, I found myself smiling, knowing that whatever came next would be the answer we had all been waiting for along this winding journey. Nothing was lost, it was only the beginning.